All right, hey guys. So I am sharing my workout from today. Use workout loosely, but um, so what I did, well, I kind of thought about it while I was on the treadmill, and I thought, well, this would be good content for everybody. So I think a lot of the problem people have, a lot of us have an issue with treadmill and how we're going to do hard work on the treadmill, and we don't necessarily want to. It's hard to kind of stay focused, things like that. So I just wanted to show you some of the things. Well, one thing I did today, and it worked out pretty well because I was just kind of making observations as the workout was going on, and so I felt like maybe this will help. So all right. So what I did, my original goal going into this was to really just do keep because I'm just building up, right? And so I really, although any work I do is going to be lighter work, right? So I just am kind of gravitating past just doing easy volume into doing the next phase, which would be fartleks or hills. And so we have a lot of snow. Streets are not plowed yet. It usually takes us a long time after the actual snowfall to actually get plowed. And so treadmill is what it's going to be. And it's really hard for me to do speed work on the treadmill, especially when I'm not very fit. It just is exponentially hard. And so the next thing would be hills, right? And so I can do hills. I can raise the grade. So my goal was to keep the pace the same once I got to a certain point where I was comfortable, and then just raise the grade, right? And as we've talked about, you raise the grade, effort's going to increase despite the pace staying the same, which is all I really wanted, right? And so, but what it came out to be was kind of more of a tempo run. And so, if you're a person who struggles, I was going to call this the one button tempo, because you only need to control one button, and that would be the incline. So I just kind of want to walk through this with you, kind of show you where it would be. Unfortunately, since I did it on the treadmill, the paces are going to be off because what my watch is reading and what my treadmill was saying was really two different things. And these paces are not right. These are much slower. These should be much slower. I just haven't updated them. I could probably run a 5K in about 21:30. I could probably maybe run a 5K in like 7-minute pace right now. So as you can see, these would be much slower. But using our wrist-based heart rate, and granted, I know that that's not as accurate, but the trend would still be the same. So I'll just kind of work through what I did with you real quick. So warmed up for 20 minutes. Let's get to our 20-minute mark. Okay, so 20 minutes. Then I increased the grade and went 30 seconds at 0.5%, 30 seconds at 1. No, I'm sorry. 30 seconds at 1, 30 seconds at 1.5, 30 seconds at 2, 30 seconds at 2.5, and then a minute at 3% grade. So basically a 3-minute hill. And the whole point was just to kind of ease into it and have a gradual increase in effort and heart rate. And then I recovered for 2 minutes, and all I did was take the grade back down. And so then I recovered. So even though the pace stayed the same the whole time, it was still a recovery because the intensity was coming down from the decline of the treadmill. Okay, so I did that. As you can see, heart rate didn't really do a lot that first 5 minutes, right? It was pretty steady, even through the recovery, stayed pretty steady. And then by the time I did the second one, so this is by 28, now you're starting to see an increase. And I did the same thing. I didn't touch the speed at all. I just did the same cycle through on the grade. But once I got past that second one, you can see how, you can kind of watch how my intensity was, right? So got up to intensity, and then came back down on the hill, so that's how it went. But you can see I did have some increases and decreases in heart rate, but even on my decreases, I'm like from 188 to 178. So I'm coming down a little bit, but still elevated, right? And so you can see from like mile 3 on, you can see max heart rate, average heart rate was 157, it was 163, 179, 183, right? So for my average heart rate. So average heart rate was still high, right? Even though I had ups and downs on there, but it never came down so much that I was really out of kind of that threshold zone. And so that's one way where you could really manage the effort, right? Where you can use incline to take it up. Now, in hindsight, what I probably should have done is maybe stopped at 2.5. And I probably wouldn't have got it because it started getting a little bit out of hand. The last one, I was tired by that point. But the point is, I still put in a good 15 plus minutes at a heart rate that would represent a threshold, even though I didn't do a threshold run. I was basically doing repeats at threshold pace, but the heart rate really kind of stays in that zone the whole time. And so you can kind of mimic what you would get out of doing a threshold, right? So if you're on a treadmill, that's one way you can do it. And you can play around with it, right? And obviously I'm using wrist-based heart rate, not as accurate. So if you're using, but so you have to take it with a grain of salt, or wear a strap, or have the armband or something like that. But you can definitely do it. And honestly, when I was cycling through those hills, I'm like, it got tough, but it wasn't so tough that I couldn't do it, and I couldn't keep repeating that for not an infinite amount of time, but definitely. And like even when I stopped, I probably could have gone 1 or 2 more without really much of an issue. And so, like I said, I should have backed that grade down, but it was still a good solid effort for where I was at, and it kind of turned into more of, I wasn't getting full recovery by any stretch of the imagination. So that heart rate was still elevated, so I could recover at an elevated heart rate and just kind of keep that threshold zone. So I was, like I said, I was still able to get about really simulated 20-minute effort of an elevated threshold type heart rate, and the intensity was definitely there, but I still had little bouts of recovery intertwined there. So that's something to think about, right? And so I did 6 by 3 minute hills with 2-minute recoveries. And I think the key for me was keeping the incline gradual, going from, relatively flat to 1%, 1.5, 2, and then by that last minute, kind of grind it out for that last minute. And that's where I kind of maybe should have backed it off to 2.5 and just stayed there, or stayed at 2.5 for a minute and only 30 seconds at 3 minutes. But the point is, you can play around with it, and it gives you something to do, and it kind of breaks it up for you, so you don't have to necessarily, oh man, I'm gonna just grind this thing out for 20 minutes or whatever. And you could probably do that for a lot of different workouts, right? You could simulate pretty much whatever you want it to. But and the other thing too is, I'm not taking the grade so drastic that it's going to destroy my calves, right? I'm not taking it to 5-6+%, right? I'm just getting a slightly elevated stance on there, and just increasing gradually, and then kind of tweaking to where you could tweak this to where you are getting the desired result you want. Now, if you wanted to do speed, you maybe take it up a little bit faster. Instead of going from 1 to 1.5 to 2, maybe go to 1.5 to 2.5, and see where you're at. But you can play around with that too, and then at a pace that you can comfortably handle at the desired intensity level, right? And then you could stretch that out for even marathon repeats, and do like 5-10 minutes at that point, and then just take a short recovery, do it again, and do it again, right? And so then you can really kind of simulate the efforts that you want to do without necessarily having to just grind it out the whole time at one pace and one grade. Because if you stay at if you have to jack that up to like 3% on the grade, and you have to hold it there for a half an hour to mimic that result, it's probably not the best thing for you. But if we're kind of just cycling through all those different grades down to pretty much flat, keeping the pace relatively comfortable, then we're in a much better spot. So anyway, that was my experience today. We'll see if I can get better data. I know the wrist-based heart rate is a little tricky to do some point. And then, you're getting it. I had it on treadmill setting, and I never touched the pace, and you can see there that, I'm getting different paces and stuff like that. So it is what it is. But it's something to consider. So, all right, hopefully that helps you guys out, and I will talk to you later.